artificial moon hides the first moon according to claims, and I'm translating from a Greek article. The real satellite of the Earth is called Lilith and was named by Elohim Semiaza, the leader of the 201 fallen angels, the Elohim, in honor of the great fallen one of the universe, the only female man, Lilith Lamasthu. The data of the article came from volume 40 of the book series of Demosthenes Diakopoulos, Why and How They Lived Between Us, The Secrets of the Moon, edited by the collaborator of Invisible Knowledges, Dimitris Papadoudis. Now, Apollo created the god, the ancient pantheon of Greek gods. Apollo created supposedly the artificial moon and brought it in front of Lilith, the Earth's natural satellite. The orbit of the moon, as well as its position of rotation and orbit, was and continues to be such that prevents the inhabitants of Earth from seeing Lilith, which is constantly on the backside, the far side, the dark side of the moon. And that is why we never see the far side of the moon, which is invisible to us, but also prevents any visual contact of Lilith with Earth. Of course, the astronauts have taken pictures and images of the far side of the moon, and from what we understand and what we see, it doesn't have as many impact craters as the side that we do see. We have seen very strange artifacts that have appeared on NASA images of the far side of the moon, and there are some that believe that these could be images of some kind of alien construction because they do not appear to be naturally made geological formations. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. This is just one sample of a NASA image showing what appears to be a pyramid. Now, Apollo did this because Lilith was a strategic point in space from which targets of Elohim installations on Earth could be hit, but also for the El to use the moon, the Elohim, as a point of attack on targets on Earth and in Lilith. Lilith, high in the sky, was a reference point for the Nephilim's superiority, and from there they could have control of Earth. Apollo, at a conference on Olympus, the pantheon of ancient Greek gods according to mythology, then proposed to create a new moon and place it between Earth and Lilith, the planet's natural satellite. Zeus considered this task difficult, if not impossible, and in order to put his child in a difficult position, motivated by Hera, who did not like him, he said yes. Now, the Nephilim ships secretly, quickly, with a method of creating the Stargate, left the Earth and went to parts of the dream world, the false universe, older than our solar system, and there they created the new moon far away from the eyes of the Nephilim. The method of its creation was the one believed by the gods, that is, the method of applied architectural construction. And according to this technology, they created a model of the object under construction as well as the building stones, hence the pieces of different materials that would make up the object from the smallest to the largest. The so-called object could be a statuette or a huge artificial hollow spherical satellite full of cities and weapon systems like the new moon. And as soon as the model was finished, huge machines undertook the editing after first creating all the necessary parts. From a small screw to huge amount of rocks and metal surfaces hundreds of kilometers long. To create the model, the designer was spiritually connected to a machine that in our time we would call a computer, and this computer read the designer's thoughts with incredible speed. Now we know that thoughts can be read by computer and our thoughts can cause motion. This has been done recently with experiments with monkeys using a joystick in order to get their reward was juice. and then they took the joystick away. They unplugged the joystick, but their thoughts created their success in the game to be rewarded the juice. And then they took away the joystick, which had no connection anyway, and he was just holding the straw from which he was holding sipping the juice. And with his thought, he was playing pinball on the computer. So his thoughts were causing the computer to work. That was just amazing. We have that now. Now, so Phoebus Apollo, after distributing to the scientists of the L who had with him the individual works, undertook the entire construction himself. And in a relatively short time, the pre-construction was completed, and the huge L machines and factories that operated automatically, taking materials from the old star, about 8.2 billion years old, where they went to build the new moon, were all ready to start the titanium work. The whole construction of the individual spaces, both on the surface of the moon and inside it, was such that it allowed its operation, both by the Ls and by their human relatives, the L lines. Phoebus Apollo gave the order, and the pre-constructed moon began to be created. The general rationale for the creation was that the supercomputer steered the prefabricated parts by remote control and led them to be assembled in 0 time, as the manufacturer had planned in his mind. The moon, as already mentioned, is hollow. Now, in previous videos a couple of days ago, we noticed that the scientists were very alarmed when they let the LEM crash onto the moon a little apart from the Apollo lander. They heard the moon ring like a bell for over half an hour, and they were shocked at that because that showed them that the sphere of the moon was hollow. Now, going according to this, the moon, as already mentioned, is hollow, says the article here. We're talking about a concave spherical construction made of titanium. Now, the spherical chassis, according to the custom of L, is covered both inside and out, completely made of copper. The outer shell was covered with rocks and soil of a minimum thickness in the plains, just about 1 kilometer thick. This would allow the meteorites to absorb the impact, which, due to the lack of atmosphere, would reach the surface of the new moon. The interior was made to function independently and autonomously, even if the moon fell under the rule of the Nephilim or anyone else. No one could and still can enter the interior. It is isolated like the Tartars on Earth. The interior of the moon contains all those mechanisms that move it, that correct, if necessary, its orbit, and that ensure its position in space so that Lilith remains in the shadow of the moon and never comes into visual contact with the Earth. The moon is at such a distance from Earth that its apparent diameter is the same as that of the sun, and if necessary, in case of a strong flash in the visible spectrum, it can give a selective region a total solar eclipse and complete protection in the eyes of its inhabitants from bright light. When the moon was ready, Apollo decided on the method of transport, and it is no coincidence that the names of NASA spacecraft that were there, since the Nephilim in the formalities hold the formulas even against their enemies. There were 2 ways to transport the moon. One was to travel through chaos from the point of construction to Earth. This journey, no matter how fast, would take thousands of years. The other was to create a huge stargate and move it to its place. However, the world of dreams may be false, but it follows certain patterns which we call the laws of nature. Those who accept these laws and remain attached to this world are affected by any change that occurs in it. For example, when it touches us, our flame burns. The same flame, however, if it touches someone who believes that the flame is false and does not exist, does not burn him. Thus, the appearance of the moon in the sky of the Earth would have, as a consequence, the change of thousands of parameters of life on our planet. The main problem of Apollo, that is, was not how to manage the creation, opening and closing of the stargate in the system of the old star near which he built the moon, and then here where he would bring it, but the changes in terms of balances and effects of uranium engineering rules. Apollo, of course, was not an expert in the musical harmony of the lyre, as the fairy tales of the New and Old Order say, but an expert in the musical harmony of the universe. So he decided the following. 1, he would construct the moon outside the solar system he chose, which was about 250 light years from Earth, so that its existence would not affect its structure by dynamic behavior at all. 2, he would put Hephaestus to build the astral gate near the moon and on the path of its orbit in order to lead it directly into it. 3, the end of the stargate would be outside our solar system. 4, the entrance to our solar system would be at a high speed that would decrease as would reach its desired orbit around the Earth. 5, at the same time and as the moon approached, Lilith would change its orbit to stay tuned to a corresponding orbit similar to that of the moon at the Lagrange points, as we call them today, of the equilibrium points, hence in the now triple system of Earth, Moon, Lilith. 6, the last thing he needed was a gradual adaptation of the Earth to its gravitational interaction with the moon. He would solve this after the end of the whole process, and it was the last thing that bothered him, since Lilith's own attraction to the relatively light hollow moon would make her seemingly even smaller in mass, since it would exert an opposite attraction to her, that of the Earth. So he decided, and so he did. From the moment Apollo started from Earth until the moment when the moon was in orbit around it, 1,061 days passed, as much as the lexicon of its name. When the moon appeared outside the solar system and began to approach the Earth's orbit at a very high speed, Nephilim ships immediately approached it and found that it was a structure that does not belong to what we call natural bodies of the dream world, but for something artificial. Then Apollo informed everyone that it was a gift, a great gift of Zeus to all the descendants of the Nephilim, something that everyone would welcome to make controlling the Earth easier. By the time the leaders of all generations spoke and reconciled with each other, the moon had already approached, and the elves, in the meantime, had received delegations from anyone interested in the moon, but without giving them any control and without putting anyone in its automated interior. This was the short time during which the Nephilim underestimated Zeus and the El. They made the mistake and paid for it. The moon entered orbit around the Earth, and only at the last moment did they realize that Lilith was useless, as she was completely hiding behind the new moon. The traffic was matte. The motion was matte. I guess mate. Checkmate. War, the War of the Titans was inevitable. The first Trojan horse was named by the El Moon, by the people of the moon, and actually had many mountains and cities and many large buildings, according to Proclus. Having seen the facts about the creation of the moon and how it got here, close to our Earth, let's now look at some answers to questions such as why the visible and invisible sides of the Earth's artificial satellite, the moon, are not the same. When the war of the elves with the Nephilim, like the war of the Titans and the giants, took place, but also after many thousands of years, the war of the Greeks and the Atlanteans, not only the Earth was hit from the bases of the moon, but of course the bases of the moon were hit from Earth. The same thing happened between the moon, which is Selene, the Greek word is Selene, and Lilith. The area of the moon that looked towards the Earth, due to the needs of its use, had much more facilities and had much more plain areas. It was therefore much more protected from falling meteorites. Thus, the side seen only from Lilith is full of craters, either from the fall of meteorites or from the explosions of the blows received from Lilith, and the side towards the Earth has much fewer craters due to the much smaller hollow blows it received due to the higher protection it had. Another possible question is why the flying machines inside the moon were not destroyed during the battle of the Titans and the giants. What the Nephilim understood immediately when the first skirmishes with the elves began was that if the moon's flight mechanism was destroyed, it would fall to Earth and nothing would be left. For this reason, all the battles that were fought never aimed at the destruction of the moon, and especially the destruction or blocking of the flight mechanisms. During the battle of the giants and the titans, the war between the El and the Nephilim, that is, innumerable missions were designed, mainly by Mishnava commandos of the genus Baphomet, to enter the moon, to master it, and to understand how it works in order to get it and control it. Many tried, but every one of them was killed. Corresponding operations and battles and bombings took place during the war with the Atlanteans and the Greeks. In the end, no one was left alive on the moon. Apollo's automated mechanism, however, continues to work, and the moon continues to hide Lilith from the face of our Earth. In Lilith and the moon today, utter destruction and utter abandonment prevail. New facilities now operate with no substantial benefit to the Nephilim who maintain them. During the Atlantean-Greek War, everything was destroyed. No one tried after the Greek-Atlantic War to get inside and take control of the moon, since any such attempt would lead to the moon in an instantaneous collision with Earth, as clarified by the builder Phoebus Apollo. With this fact, the local regulator now prevents any such attempt. So please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. What do you think of this explanation? This is the first time I've ever heard of all this. Thank you for your comments and your support.